Hi, coming up in this video I'll do this watercolour from start to finish. It's just one or two pots and a lantern out in the garden. Some of it will be in time-lapse. Hope you enjoy it. Looking for potential subjects out here, there's this cluster of blue pots are a possibility, but I'll have a look further around. Actually, over here towards the palm tree, at the base of the tree, there's nicely lit objects here, terracotta pots and a couple of lanterns. I'll take a photograph of this as the light's likely to be changing quickly, and we'll head inside and work on a sketch for that before painting it. Initially I'm going to start off with a wash on the background, working around the lantern which is in full sunlight, and we'll see how this works out. So let's start by wetting the paper. I'm going to work around the lantern, so I don't want to get that bit wet, so it's around the top of it. Come right across the trunk of the tree. The funny little bits here are where the older branches once were that have now been cut back to stumps. Most of the front end of this stone jar is in full sun, but this bit's all fairly dark. And in the background over here I've got the garden fence. There's a few plants further down, but won't worry about them at the moment. I'll be painting some of this in gouache, which is an opaque colour, so it means I can work some light over the dark bits. So it's a fairly light paper, as you can see. It's probably starting to lift a bit. So having damped the paper, let's go in with some dark colours. Bit of a blue black over here for over in the shed here. That's actually still quite wet in the paper there. Probably a bit wetter than it needs to be. Let's do a bit of blotting there. Typically with watercolour things, the paint will actually dry a lot lighter than when it's wet. Go with a bit more of the blue colour right out to the edge there. And so come round the top of the lantern. Hold the paper flat. This is working on a paper pad, so it's not been stretched or anything. So it's quite a lightweight cotton and paper, which is a bit like a knot surface. It's not smooth. It's not really rough. So we're coming to the tree trunk. Brown in there, so really just a bit of a background colour to start with. It's really quite dark around here. Darken that down a bit. Soak up some of that water there. A bit of the escape there. And moving on across the back, we've got the fence, which is a sort of dull greeny colour. Don't know anybody who particularly does a tube of dull green paint, but we'll just pop this in as something to start with. There we go. On the top of the pot. On the right hand side, sorry, left hand side, we've got a bit of foliage there, so we'll knock that in with some green for the moment. And down across this foreground, it's actually in full sun, so it's quite light. So what I'll put in across the foreground, if I just damp the paper first, here's a wash of raw sienna. It's fairly light around there. Just warms things up a bit. There we go. Right, at this stage, I think I shall let that first bit dry. The background is now fully dry, and it's time to start adding some washes to the main objects in the picture. There's a very strong side lighting coming in from the top left, so with the big lantern here, which is actually sort of concrete, so it's a warmish grey colour, but certain parts of it, these edges here, bits just under there, which get the full sunlight coming in at quite a low angle. These front bits here, but around this side, this is really quite dark and that. So as I work across the picture, I damp the individual areas and then apply washes, but thinking in terms of how the lighting is coming across. This pot in the foreground is a very pale colour, sort of straw colour, and little bits in here are actually virtually white in the photograph I'm working to. So let's start by working a bit on the main lantern. We'll just damp it down with some clean water. This edge here is actually really quite dark, so I'll probably go in with a more solid colour there, but working with a bit of a warmish grey. I shall just add a bit of wash to this side here. Very dark shadowing under that bit there. So let's bring this back down the front there. A bit dark around here. The very top of this does throw a really dark shadow across here, which is quite a distinct one, which I'll put those in later. Got a bit under here. There you go. So I'll carry on doing similar things all the way across the picture. So this is probably a good time to switch over to time-lapse, because otherwise it could take quite a while. having painted a couple of the terracotta pots, I realised in fact that this rim of this pot is much lighter, and it's actually much lighter down the side of this pot. The paint is fairly thin. I'll actually look at lifting out some of these bits that should be much lighter. So just gently damp it and dab it with a paper towel. Add a little bit more water to that bit there. So you could go over it with a paper watercolour, but obviously the less paint there is on the paper, the less it's likely to mix with the underlying colours. Agitate a bit just to loosen up the paint, and then dab it out. As you can see, it's already giving the pots a bit more shape to them. Give it a dark edge there. Oops, off come the clips. There's a few lighter stalks on the tree I want to recover. The tree in the background is a Chusan palm, so you end up with these stalks where the lower branches have been cut back. Take out a little bit of the dark where it's come down too far. So back to adding more paint. There's a little bit of foliage and stuff in the background, a few plants and bits over there, and I think I still need to darken down some of these shadow areas to get a real good contrast, so you get a sort of alternating pattern of light, dark right across the picture. Give it a bit of interest. So we'll look at that in time-lapse. If anybody's got any questions, pop them in the comments down below, and if you like what I'm doing, use the like button. there's probably not an awful lot more to do to this. There is perhaps a little bit more colour in the top of the lantern. There's some vegetation and bits around the back of the pots here and over on this side, and in the foreground there's a couple of sort of flat stone slabs and the rest of this gravel, so perhaps a little bit of shadow and texture in the foreground just to stop the eye dropping off the bottom of the picture. Back over to the time lapse and see where we go from here. So not far to go now.
If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing by clicking on the button down below.